I appreciate you guys being here. My name is Chip Reaves with CT Anderson, aka Computer Troubleshooters of Anderson. Appreciate you guys being on the call. I used to do a lot of these educational seminars or webinars with my previous company. This is the first time we've done it with CT Anderson, so it's kind of a new thing for us, and we'd appreciate your feedback on how it goes and what kind of topics you'd like to see in the future if you'd like to see us do it again. The idea for today's seminar came from a handful of questions we've had lately, actually a lot of questions we've had lately from customers who have been upgrading their computers or upgrading their networks or upgrading their servers. And there have been a lot of changes particularly in how Microsoft licenses certain things. And we're really at an inflection point where some choices have to be made as far as how you want to structure your office in the future. The good news is a lot of things are getting less expensive, they're getting easier, they're getting more reliable. The bad news is there's some things that don't work together as well as they used to. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and also give you some tips on how you can save some money today as well. Quick bit about me. I've been in this business for 24 years now. It'll be 25 years next year, I guess. I had an IT company in the Atlanta area for 12 years back in the 1990s. I started an organization called Computer Troubleshooters in 1999. We grew it to about 500 locations around the world, including Computer Troubleshooters of Anderson. Sold that last year, and today I work with Computer Troubleshooters Anderson along with my partner Scott Smith and our team. I also run a company called Bigger Brains where we do online training for small businesses, and I've been doing some things. There's some stuff on the screen. So the goal today is really to show where office technology is going. And as I was thinking about this, one of the examples that might make sense to some of you is something that happened to me when I was in high school. I was in high school in the 1980s, and my mother, God bless her, went to the store to get a stereo for our home. She wanted to have something to play Christmas music on mostly. And she got to the store and she couldn't remember whether 8 tracks or cassettes were the new thing. And so she got the 8-track tape player. This is probably about 1985. When 8 tracks were well and truly gone. But that's the home stereo that we had for years and years and years. We were kind of stuck with that thing. It was one of those big console jobs. And we never could find much. I think we had a total of 4 8-track tapes we could play in it eventually. Now it also had a record player and stuff. But our goal in this webinar today is to keep you guys from buying an 8-track tape player. Is to keep you from buying technology today that's going to be a waste of your money or that's going to lead you down the wrong track. And part of the impetus for the seminar today is we got connected to a couple of customers recently who are new customers for us who had just spent thousands or in some cases tens of thousands of dollars on technology that they didn't need and that's really not even recommended for their situation anymore. But they bought it because that was kind of the traditional thing. That was the way they had always done it. That's what their other IT company recommended because it certainly made a lot of money for them. We want to keep you guys from making those sorts of bad decisions. So let's talk about where we are today. When we talk about the office today, most of us have Windows computers, whether they're Dell or HP or Lenovo or whatever. They're probably running some version of Microsoft Windows. They're probably connected to a Microsoft server, maybe more than one Microsoft server. Most of our customers in Anderson are either using what's called Simple Pop email, which is the free email you get from your internet provider most of the time, or they're paying a lot of money to install and support a physical exchange server in their building, in their business. Of course, we have a lot of different applications. Every business has their own programs that they run. The problems that we have with the modern office are, number one, data loss. Every hard drive is going to die. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But whenever a hard drive dies, there's always the risk that that data is not going to come back. And if a business loses critical files, particularly critical customer files, there's a significant impact. Now, preventing data loss and keeping all of the security updates and virus protection and just general routine maintenance that's required to keep a modern office going, which quite frankly is our bread and butter, there's an expense associated with that. And in a typical modern office, we're limited to working within a certain location or certain set of devices. And the most common example of that is a lot of us have programs that we can only use from the office or only use from our desk computer, which is fine. But there's a lot of times when you might want to work from home. Maybe you've got a kid homesick from school and you want to stay home with them for the day. Maybe you're going to be on vacation, and while I don't think any of us want to work on vacation, sometimes it's nice just to be able to pop in for 5 minutes and get certain things done so the rest of the team isn't held up just because you're out of the office. That's hard to do with the traditional office setup. In fact, it hasn't really changed too much since this picture was taken, and I used to sell those computers once upon a time. There's a war going on for what the future of the office is going to look like. That started around 2005, really started with Google. Google, as they were a growing young company, looked at the landscape of office technology, and the big moneymaker out there obviously was Microsoft. And so they looked at how Microsoft makes their money. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And they decided that there was an opportunity there for them to replace Microsoft for companies who wanted a more forward-thinking way of doing business, more web-based, more cutting-edge. Between Microsoft and Google, they've spent $50 to $100 billion per year on research and development and on marketing to build this future version of the Office. Google will come up with some features. Microsoft will add some features to take back what they've lost. Google will counteract that with some other features. Both of them are lowering prices. Both of them are trying to give away some services for free. The name of the game nowadays is the ecosystem. If you're in the Google ecosystem and you're using the Google apps and the Google search engine and the Google tools, then Google has an opportunity to make money from you. And it's all really about money at the end of the day. Microsoft knows that. They also know the tighter you are in the Google ecosystem, the harder it is for them to make money because Google's trying to replace Microsoft products. So they have their own ecosystem with Microsoft products like Office and Windows, but also more cutting-edge cloud-based tools like Microsoft Office 365. Now, obviously, those are not the only two companies in the tech world. There's also Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Firefox, QQ, who's very big in China. But in terms of the office environment, these are the two heavies. And it all boils down to money, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. To give you an example of what I'm talking about, if you look at the news in the technology space, you can kind of see this battle going on. Sorry, that says Motorola buys Nokia. That's not right. Microsoft bought Nokia because they wanted to have something to compete with Google's Android phones. So Google bought Motorola, which gave them their own hardware company for phones. Microsoft has software you can run on the phone itself. Google's always been web-based, so Google went out and bought QuickOffice, which is a web app for Android and iPhones. So Microsoft counters that by releasing Microsoft Office for Android and iPhone. A lot of people really like gmail.com as their personal email, and a lot of business email as well. So Microsoft releases Outlook.com, their free version, which has a lot of the same features and beyond of what Google offers. Google releases Google Now, Google creates the Chromebook, Microsoft creates Windows RT. There's all these battles going back and forth for the ecosystem, but how does it affect you? What does it actually matter to your office that all this is going on? How does it benefit you? Well, let's take a look at the 6 most common things that you actually do in your office. And your office is probably different than my office. Everyone's office is a little bit different. But I think these 6 tasks more or less happen in every office, right? Every office communicates. Nowadays, that's a lot of email. We also use the phone. We all create and share documents, spreadsheets, and presentations. For some of us, that might be contracts. For some of us, that might be engineering drawings. For some of us, it might just be letters and correspondence. We all store and organize files. We all meet and talk. We all collaborate. We work with other employees. We work with our customers. We work with our vendors. And we all run business applications. And obviously the business applications are different for each of us. There's some of us that don't do very much at all in the way of business applications. Some of us, if we just have our Microsoft Word and our email, that's all we really need to do business. Other companies need their engineering applications. They need their video applications. They need their HR applications. Whatever it is that makes your company run, that's part of your office environment too. So let's talk about Google's plan, because Google started all this. And by the way, there's a chat window on the screen. There's a little bubble at the top. If you want to click on that, if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to use the chat window to ask questions. Yeah, send out a chat notice. Okay, so hopefully you got that. So let's talk about Google. As I said, Google kind of looked at things in 2005 and they decided that their future was not going to be in traditional software, not the kind of stuff that you used to buy on floppy disks and then you bought on CDs and then you bought on DVDs and now you probably download from somewhere. They decided their future was going to be web-based. And it all kind of boils down to where they get their money from, right? A lot of times a company's motivation comes from their money. And Google makes money almost entirely from web-based advertising. The search ads on Google itself, on Google Partners, and on YouTube account for 96% of Google's revenue. And keep in mind, this is a multi-billion-dollar company, so this is a significant amount of revenue, but primarily from that one source. They make a little bit from selling products, they make a little bit from other ventures, they make a little bit from licensing, but the vast majority, 96%, is coming from advertising. Google's motivation is to keep you on the web as much as possible, because the more you're on the web, the more likely you are to be in front of their ads, the more advertising space they can sell to their advertising clients. So Google came up with Google Apps, a web-based version of Microsoft Office. It was not very good at first. It's improved considerably, although it's still not nearly on par with what Microsoft offers. But it was free for a long time, and now it's still very inexpensive for businesses. The idea is to give you a way to do all those 6 tasks that we talked about, well, at least 5 of them, all entirely from the web. So for communication, you would use Gmail. And Gmail today is not just email. You can also do chat. You can also do phone calls. You can do video conferences, all from within Gmail. The chat feature I just want to touch on for a second, because a lot of companies or a lot of people I talk to, business professionals, don't think of chat as a business function. They think of it as something that their kids do or something that they might do personally or whatever. But there's a lot of companies, particularly large organizations, enterprise organizations, have really embraced chat. And you'll see a lot of enterprise organizations that use tools like Yammer or Link as a chat tool within the organization, because it's a great way, especially if you have a staff that's not all in the same room or not all within shouting distance, it's a great way to ask quick questions without having to go to the formal effort of sending an email and get quick replies back. You can also see when somebody's busy or not busy, see when they're on the phone, see when they're out of the office, often when you're in your chat screen. Now, Google created Google Docs, which is a way for you to create documents, spreadsheets, and presentations, a lot like you do with Microsoft Office. Not nearly as full-featured, but what they found was that most people don't use all the features in Microsoft Office. Most people only use a small amount. And so the features that were in Google Docs were enough for some people, and over time, as they've added more features, then they've become more attractive to more people. They were also able, because it's a web-based application, they were able to add some things that Microsoft couldn't do. For example, let's say you create a spreadsheet and you really want to share that spreadsheet on your web page. It's really easy to do with Google Docs because your spreadsheet is already on the web. You just have to use the sharing function to share it a certain way. And then every time you edit that spreadsheet, it's automatically editing the version of the spreadsheet on your website. More recently, they have Google Drive, which actually includes Google Docs. Sorry, I saw a flag go up. If you have a question, let me know in the chat window. Google Drive is now kind of the umbrella name that Google uses for their Google Docs and also for their storage system. So you can store things on your Google Drive, and you can access your Google Drive from your PC, you can access your Google Drive from your Mac, you can also access it from your iPad, from your tablet, from your smartphone. So in theory, you could have all the important documents that you need every day always available from any computer that has access to the web, because you can get it through your Google Drive. They also have Google Voice. Google Voice is essentially a phone system. It's a way for you to make and receive phone calls, again, through the web, through your PC or through your tablet or through your smartphone, and have that number follow you. You can do some cool things with Google Voice that you can't do with a traditional phone system, like have it ring multiple places at the same time, have it ring different devices based on what time of day it is, and that sort of thing. And collaboration, Google was really the first one to do true collaboration the way we think of it today. let's say you're working on a document with a colleague, maybe you're both working on a contract. You can both open that same contract in your Google Docs window, and you can see the changes that each other is making as you go along. Now, the big weakness with Google Apps is business applications. If you've got programs that your business needs to run, maybe it's CAD applications, maybe it's dental applications, maybe it's certain marketing applications, maybe it's HR applications, chances are those are designed for Microsoft Windows, and that means you have to have a Windows PC to run those. So that those business applications are really separate from Google Apps and Google's version of the future. But apart from that, it's not a bad little system. Now, there are some pros and cons. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Um, what Google brought to the table, though, is really for the first time, outside of having your own big server and a lot of maintenance and expense associated with maintaining that server, you could have what we call today business class email. You could have your email and your contacts and your calendar synced between different computers, between your computer and your computer and your tablet. A lot of us want to access our email now on our computer, on our phone, maybe on our home computer, maybe on our iPad. And the frustrating complaint I get from a lot of people is, if I delete an email on my phone, it's still there on my PC. I have to go back and delete it again on my PC. Or if I file something, if you're using folders and you're filing things into the folders, if you take the time to file it while you're using your iPad or using your phone, it doesn't get filed on your PC. That's what happens when you're not using a business class email solution. Gmail brought that capability for free to personal users, and originally it was free to business users as well. Now it's a very small cost. It's $5 a month. But that's a very inexpensive way to do that. You also get the text and video chat, and you get the Microsoft equivalent apps. And they're also building their own ecosystem of applications. They're trying to make up for the fact that a lot of Windows-based applications don't work in their world, in their vision of the future, by encouraging people to develop applications that run inside Google Apps. And there are thousands of applications out there. There are CRM tools, and there's marketing tools, and there's security tools, and there's accounting tools, all inside Google Apps. And a lot of companies, hundreds and thousands of companies, use the apps in the Google Apps marketplace, and some of them are very good. They just may be very different from what we've used traditionally. And here's a little screenshot of the Google Apps Marketplace, just a small glimpse of what's available in there. Something else Google's done recently is they've realized, I think, that one of the issues that we have in the modern office is maintenance. And this is always kind of a touchy subject for computer consultants like me, because our bread and butter is maintaining computers for people. And this is why a lot of IT consultants don't want to talk about this stuff, because they see this as a threat to their livelihood. My attitude is this stuff's coming anyway. I'd rather be known as the guy that helped you guys save money and helped our customers move to a more efficient, more productive place, and we'll find a way to be successful doing that. I don't want to keep selling solutions that aren't right for our clients just because they make us a lot of money. And Chromebook's an interesting tool. Google decided that the challenge with a lot of notebook computers and desktop computers is the maintenance. You've always got virus protection, you've got updates you've got to put in, there's hardware maintenance, there's a lot of issues associated with owning a computer, quite frankly. And they decided that since their world, their vision of the future really just exists on the web, if they could create a machine that did nothing but go on the web, that's all that their customers would need. And they created these things called Chromebooks, and these are exploding in popularity right now. You'll see these in Best Buy, you'll see them in Walmart, you'll see them in Sam's, you'll see them on Amazon.com. They actually 2 of the top 5 computers on Amazon.com for really most of the last year have been Chromebooks. And the reason is, if it's a computer, excuse me, that's designed purely for being on the web, then it doesn't need a hard drive necessarily. It doesn't need a copy of Windows. It doesn't need a lot of the pieces that a normal notebook needs, and so it can be very inexpensive. You've got Chromebooks that are really pretty decent machines for less than $200, brand new. Now, they can't run Windows applications. All they can do is get on the web, And some people look at it as kind of like an iPad with a keyboard, and that's sort of true. You can get Chrome apps and add them on there, and especially for a lot of business users, since we do so much typing, maybe that's not a bad thing. Certainly, the sales show that people are pretty happy with it. There are some pros and cons with Google's version of the Future Office. On the pro side, it's very inexpensive. It's $5 per month per person. It's free for personal use. You don't need any servers. So all the costs that are associated with both installing, supporting, and maintaining servers, that's all goes away. Your IT support costs to companies like us, that should be a lot lower. You don't have to worry nearly as much about viruses. If you're using pure web machines like the Chromebook, there's really very little chance of a virus getting in. You don't have to worry about data loss. You don't have to worry about backing up because Google's handling all of that for you with the documents and the information you have in Google Apps. And it's available anywhere you have an internet connection. It's also available a little bit if you don't have an internet connection. That's one of the biggest hangups people have about this sort of future office, is it having to have an internet connection. Even though most of us have an internet connection 99% of the time, there's still that 1%. Well, you can do some things with Google Apps without an internet connection. You can, for example, edit documents. You can read your email. Even without an internet connection. It has to be set up a special way, but it can be done. So the downsides, it requires an internet connection most of the time. There's possible privacy concerns. And privacy is a tricky subject because people feel different ways about this. I am one of the people that I don't see a way to stop Google or Microsoft or big companies or the government, for that matter, from getting access to my stuff if they really want to. And so it doesn't bother me. I kind of just assume they're already reading my stuff anyway, and good luck with that. For other people, that's a big deal. For other people, they really want to make sure their stuff is as private as possible, and I understand that. Now, Google has privacy protections. They have a long list of things that they guarantee. Now, they don't necessarily guarantee total privacy. They make it clear that law enforcement and the government will always have access to your information if they have a subpoena or whatever, and that's fair. But Google themselves also use your information. They use your emails, and they use your documents, and they use your behavior online to know what kind of ads to show you, because that's valuable to them. That's where they make their money. It's less so with the paid version. The paid version of Google Apps, in fact, says that they will not read your email. They will not send you ads based on what they see in your email. But that's still a concern for a lot of people. And that's a longer discussion than we can have here. There's certainly a lot of stuff we could talk about offline if you're interested. The biggest issue with Google's version of the Future Office, though, is that it doesn't work with so much of the software that's out there today. If you're in a business, if you're in an industry that has programs written for you that your business requires, that run on Windows, or maybe run on Mac, but most of them run on Windows, then that's not going to work. At least that's not going to work. You wouldn't get all the benefits of Google's Future Office. You would have Google's Future Office plus some Windows left around, which works for a lot of people. Maybe it's a transitional thing. A bigger issue for a lot of people, a lot of business people like Microsoft Outlook, and I am one of those. Microsoft Outlook is a great tool for managing your email and your calendar and your contacts, and Microsoft Outlook does not work well with Google Office, with Google Apps. It used to, and it's actually gone downhill a good bit lately, in large part because both Google and Microsoft have stopped working together on this sort of thing. They both see this as a battle, and so Google has taken away some of the features that used to let Gmail work well inside Outlook. Their attitude is they would rather encourage people, it's the word they use, to just use Gmail on the web and not use a separate program for it. Meanwhile, Microsoft has also made it more difficult for Google to work with Outlook. So there's some blame on both sides. But if you're a big Outlook fan, then this is not the future for you. So let's look at another version of the future. Let's look at the Microsoft plan. Microsoft was kind of caught flat-footed when Google first started their whole Office, or cloud-based Office initiative. And at first they thought nobody would really care for it because it's so lacking in a lot of the features that Microsoft Office has, so they didn't think anybody would really go for it. And at first they were kind of right, but the writing's on the wall now, and more, as people become more comfortable to working on the internet, as people especially as younger people enter the workforce. I read a stat the other day that 90% of office workers under the age of 25 prefer to use Google Apps compared to Microsoft Office. That's a big problem for Microsoft because, as we'll see, Office is their cash cow. So what they've come up with is that they're trying to take the best of both worlds. They realize that they've got a real advantage in the software that they do have, so they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. They're trying to have both Windows apps and a web-based or cloud-based approach. Now keep in mind Microsoft's motivation, again, is money. No big surprise. They make a huge amount of their money from the traditional Office. Their Microsoft Office product line, from people buying Word and Excel and PowerPoint and Access and OneNote and Publisher, that's 30% of their revenue. That's a lot of money. From the servers that maintain the centralized data for a lot of that stuff, that's 25% of the revenues. From Windows itself, that's 20% of the revenues. And then they also make about 10% from entertainment, which is their Xbox and similar devices. But a huge portion of their income comes from this traditional Office. And what's actually not listed here, this is from 2012, is their online services. Their online services were about 3% at this point in 2012. So what Microsoft is trying to do is they know online is the future. They're trying to ramp that side up without killing off too much of the cash cow they have now, which makes total sense. And in the meantime, they're trying to give us the best of both worlds, and it's working to some degree. There's some pros and cons to everything else, but I'll show you how it works. So Microsoft's plan is to give you the benefits of both, the traditional Windows Office server environment, and give you the web benefits in whatever proportion makes sense for you. In their vision of the future, you're still going to use Microsoft Outlook, but you'll use Microsoft Outlook connected to Office 365. You're going to create and share documents with Office, just like you always have with Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, but you're going to save those on Office 365, and you're going to be able to share those with others through Office 365. So in the same way you can share those spreadsheets with Google Apps, you can share those with people through Office 365. You're going to store and organize your files in either SkyDrive or SkyDrive Pro. There's a whole big pet peeve of mine. They have two services that are completely different that have almost the same name. But SkyDrive Pro is what businesses are expected to use. And if you're primarily focused on Office apps, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, then SkyDrive Pro can actually replace all of your servers. Most of us might still need servers depending on your business for certain things. But particularly with email, there's really no reason for an email server anymore. In fact, Microsoft in the last year has discontinued the Microsoft Small Business Server. Microsoft has publicly stated that they don't expect small businesses to need physical servers anymore, not for email, that they're better served with Office 365. And so that's kind of a pet peeve of mine when I see other companies that are still installing email servers, and they make arguments for it that it's more secure, it's more private. The truth is, it costs a lot of money to maintain those things, and that's profitable for companies like us, and that's understandable. They've also got features that let you talk and meet, things like Link and Skype. A lot of people have heard of Skype. It's been around for a while. Microsoft bought them a year or two ago. Link is maybe less commonly known, but that's an application Microsoft already had in-house that let you chat, do video calls, and also even it can basically be your entire phone system if you set it up correctly. You can collaborate within Office 365, and the nice thing about Microsoft's version of the future world is that you can keep running all your same business applications. Everything you've got that runs on Windows today can run on Windows tomorrow and interface with Office 365. So Office 365 is Microsoft's vision of the future. It's their Web plus Windows. It also works on a Mac, so you can be Web plus Mac. It gives you email, chat, and video conferencing. It can even be your whole phone system. It gives you file sharing and collaboration. It lets you create documents online if you want to, or you can also use your traditional Microsoft Office on Windows. And they're really making it so that there's a big cost advantage for using the Office 365 version of the software versus the traditional software. I'll talk about that in a minute. You don't necessarily need a server, but if you do have Microsoft servers to support other applications, then Office 365 will integrate with them. A quick snapshot of the Office 365 Administration Center. Now, within computer troubleshooters and bigger brains, we actually use both. CT Anderson runs on Google Apps. Bigger Brains runs on Office 365. So we have a lot of experience with both, and I'm happy saying there's pros and cons both ways, but I prefer Office 365. Something else Microsoft's done lately is they've come up with their version of the iPad, quote unquote, which is called the Microsoft Surface. We get a lot of customers asking us about this. I don't necessarily recommend it. It's a very specific use case. The Surface and the Surface, what's now called the Surface Pro, does run the regular version of Windows 8. Actually works pretty well. If you want to be able to run your normal Windows software on a tablet and have an optional snap-in keyboard, it's a pretty nice little device. The battery life is not as long as an iPad, and it's not as simple to use as an iPad. So if you're looking for something that's just easy to use for just browsing the web or reading books, listening to music, watching videos, the iPad's probably a better choice. But if you're actually looking to get some work done with it too, and for some reason you don't want a regular notebook, then the Surface Pro is a pretty good device there too. Be careful with the Surface RT. You'll see the Surface RT and the Surface 2 RT on sale with a lot of Black Friday sales coming up next week. The Surface RT is not a bad little device. It's a very inexpensive device, and it runs what looks like Windows, but it's not actually Windows. It's a version of Windows called Windows RT that has Microsoft Office built in, including Microsoft Outlook. But it can't run any other Windows applications. So even though it looks like Windows, you can't put your other programs on there. If you're happy with the stuff that comes with Windows, if you're happy with the apps you can buy through the Windows App Store, then an RT device might be great for you. But a lot of people are not happy when they get home and find that it can't run whatever their normal program is. So let's look at the pros and cons of Microsoft's future. The pros, it's not too expensive. The typical plan that we set up with small businesses is $15 a month per person. Now they've got plans as low as $2, they've got plans as high as $30. For academic and government, it's often free or very discounted, but the $15 per month per person plan gives you, I think, the best mix of features for a small business. It gives you all the benefits of the Office 365 product, the email, the collaboration, the chat, the video conferencing, and all of that. But you also get the full Microsoft Office software product. And in fact, you can install it on up to 5 devices per user. What they're doing to encourage people to go with the Office 365 route is if you don't go with Office 365, if you purchase the traditional software that you either install off a CD or download, they've changed the pricing on that. It's actually, the pricing hasn't changed, but where it used to be $150 to $350 per copy per. You were allowed to use one copy on up to 2 or 3 devices. Now you're limited to one device. So it's $150 to $350 per device, whereas Office 365 lets you use it on up to 5 devices. And Office 365 is the only way to get Microsoft Office on your smartphone. Microsoft's Office 365 works great with existing programs, it works great with existing servers, and it works great with Microsoft Outlook, which is a big deal for a lot of people. Cons, it costs a little more than Google Apps. There's some possible privacy concerns there as well. There are some people that say Microsoft does a better job with privacy. There's some people that say Google. The cloud features within Office 365 in some cases work really well, and in some cases they're clearly a work in progress. This is something that I think is going to be a much better product in 2 or 3 years than it is today. The downside is if you're still using a traditional Windows laptop or still a traditional Windows desktop, then you still have that traditional desktop maintenance. It's still important for you to have backup and virus protection and that sort of thing for your local documents and applications. There is one other possible future that I want to talk about, and that's a concept called desktop as a service. And I use this as a concept instead of a particular vendor because there's a lot of different vendors that offer this. The vendor that I borrowed this screenshot from is called Cloud Nation, who is a partner of ours, and they do a particularly good job with it. There's others. Amazon just recently announced that they're getting into this as well. The idea behind desktop as a service is that you can be on any computer, a Windows machine, a Mac, a Unix computer if you have a Linux computer. You can be on your iPad or you can be on your smartphone, and by logging into a special app, you'll get access to a virtual Windows computer in the cloud, on the internet. So what that means is you could have quote-unquote your computer hosted on the internet, with all of your applications, all of your favorites, all of your bookmarks, all of your documents, all of your music, all the stuff that's yours, and you can access it wherever you are. So if you're at work, you log in at work, and there's your desktop, and there's your favorites, and there's your documents and everything else. If you're at home, you log in, same thing. If you're on the road with your iPad, you log in, same thing. From anywhere, you get access to all of your information. And because it's running Windows, it's got the ability to run any of your Windows applications. Because of that, it has some of the same maintenance issues as Windows, but generally your desktop as a service provider is taking care of a lot of the routine maintenance for you. They're doing the updates, they're doing the backup, and they're usually updating the virus protection as well. They're even updating Microsoft Office in most cases. The pros of desktop as a service is that it's again, quote unquote, your Windows computer, accessible from anywhere. It runs any Windows applications. It reduces your maintenance expense. The big con is the pricing. You're looking at between $35 and $100 per person per month. The most typical plan that we sell is $50 per person per month, which includes a Windows 7 looking virtual computer and Microsoft Office and email all bundled in with that. It's also not great if you're doing a lot of visual stuff. If you're playing games or playing a lot of videos or doing any kind of like CAD applications, it's not a good option for that. And it can be it can be difficult to combine the desktop as a service with traditional computers. So usually a company either has to go all desktop as a service for everybody in the company or none at all. There's also some potential Microsoft licensing challenges. Microsoft is kind of on the fence about this idea. It's actually not allowed to use Windows 7 in this situation. So what you'll see is what looks like Windows 7 and runs just like Windows 7 is actually Windows Server 2008, which Microsoft does make available for this. Now we expect that in the next 2 years, Microsoft themselves will start offering this service, and when they do, we expect that their licensing issues will clear up. But right now, it makes it a little bit tricky. There's a lot of different vendors supporting desktop as a service. As I mentioned, Cloud Nation is one. Amazon just started. There's hundreds of others. Not Microsoft yet, but they're certainly heading that way. So we talked about Microsoft, we talked about Google. The biggest question I get at this point is, what about Apple? Apple's one of the biggest technology companies out there. Aren't they part of this Office of the Future? And quite frankly, no, not really. And again, it goes back to motivation. Microsoft or Apple, less than 20% of their revenue comes from anything related to the Office now. And in that 20%, I'm grouping sales of Mac computers and sales of any Office software. It's a very small part of the company now. They've become the company that is fantastic with phones, with the iPhones, with the iPads, with the iPods, with the iTunes. They make a tremendous amount of money and do a particularly good job with those devices. And along the way, they've really not focused at all on the Office of the Future. Now, that's not to say that they don't play a role. You heard me talk about using some of these solutions, Google Apps and Office 365, on a Mac or on an iPad if you have those. They tend to work fine. The actual downloadable apps for a Mac are different than the downloadable apps for a Windows PC if you're using the Office 365. But it does work. I actually use it on both. It works fine on both. But that's why Apple's not really mentioned so much in this presentation. So I promised that, kind of based on what we know about the future, I was going to give you 5 ways to save money and boost your productivity today. So let's run through those. First of all, I want to recap the 6 areas that we're looking at for the office: communications, creating and sharing documents, storing and organizing files, meeting and talking, collaborating, and running business applications. So how can we save money in those 6 areas? Well, the best advice I can give you, number 1, if you don't need traditional Windows programs, and if you don't use Microsoft Outlook, then it's a good time now to go ahead and look at Google Apps. If you're in, for example, sales or marketing, or in some cases accounting, and you're not using any downloadable software, For example, I know a lot of people in accounting use QuickBooks, but there's a lot that are switching over to Zoho or a couple of similar applications, which is a web-based version. And if you're doing that, then you might not need traditional Microsoft Windows, and as a result, you might not need a Windows computer down the road. That's going to save you a lot of money in maintenance. It's going to save you a lot of money on the computer itself. The downsides are you'd give up Microsoft Office, or you give up Microsoft Outlook, you give up true Microsoft Office, and it might change the way you do your work. But we're seeing a lot of young companies, especially a lot of tech companies coming out of Silicon Valley, who run this way. They don't have Windows. They don't have Windows PCs. If you can live without it, it's a less expensive way to go. But that's a big trade-off for a lot of us. So that's only a few of us that probably apply to that one. If you don't use Outlook, and again, a lot of these tips kind of revolve around Outlook because it is a powerful program and it is one of a kind. But if you're just looking for a way to use Office applications, this comes up a lot. We get people in the shop who have bought a new computer and didn't realize that the computer doesn't come with Microsoft Word and Excel and PowerPoint. And they want to know what they can do to access their Word and Excel and PowerPoint docs. There are a lot of free applications out there that can read and write to Microsoft Office documents, both Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, and PowerPoint presentations. And I've listed the ones here that are most common. OpenOffice is probably the most common. LibreOffice and KOffice are also good ones. Google Docs we've mentioned, it's free for personal use. There is that cost for using it in a business. And Apple just recently made their programs free. They also took away a lot of the features, so it's kind of it's been a weird time for Apple with that, but they've realized that they really can't sell their product anymore when everybody's looking at this other stuff that's either free or part of this other ecosystem. And so they've started giving away their iWorks. If you have a Mac and an iPad, you can now get the Apple version for free. Tip number 3, if you want to save your documents, pictures, or files in the cloud, if you just want a way where you can get access to your stuff wherever you are, there's a lot of free ways to do it. And 3 of the most common ones are Dropbox, SkyDrive, and Google Drive. And you can see the websites here. Dropbox you can sign up with. You get 2 gigabytes free just for signing up. And as you refer friends, you actually get a half a gig free per friend, up to 16 gigs. You can get 16 gigs of total space for free, totally for free, on Dropbox. And you can store your pictures, you can store your documents, all of that however you'd like to. SkyDrive, very similar. SkyDrive gives you 7 gigs for free right off the bat. The nice thing about SkyDrive is it actually has the web-based versions of Microsoft Office built into it. So if you do store your documents there, you can view them and even do some light editing without having to download them to a computer if you're on the road somewhere, or on an iPad, for example. And then Google Drive, very similar, gives you 15 gigs for free. It's worth playing with these. I really recommend 2 things on these. One, it's worth playing with just to see how you like it, but 2, and I'm going to stress this in another tip in a minute, I cannot reinforce how important it is for you to back up your information. And here's a free way for you to back up your information to the cloud. All of these are secure. All of these are private. Every hard drive fails. I'll talk about that in a minute, but this is a great way to have a backup copy of your information somewhere else where you can get it just in case. So here we are on the backup tip. Every week, pretty much every day, we run into customers who don't realize that these things fail. The internal hard drive, the hard drive inside your computer is going to fail. The external hard drive you've got that you might be backing it up with is going to fail. The flash drive you're using to copy documents back and forth is going to fail. And if you still have DVDs that you've copied stuff to, they're going to fail too. It's guaranteed. 100% of these are going to fail. The only question is when. We've had hard drives fail 2 months after they were bought. We've had hard drives that have lasted 10 to 12 years before they died. It's just a question of timing, and it's too much of a risk to take with anything that's important. If you've got important business files, if you've got important family photos, if you've got music that you've downloaded, you've really got to have at least 2 copies. An easy solution is to have 2 backup drives and back up to both of them, and maybe tuck one away in the safe deposit box or at a friend's house or whatever, so you've always got an extra copy out there for when your backup drive dies. Another way is to use one of these online backup services. either one of the free services I just mentioned, or if you need more space, one of the paid services. We do recommend a couple of paid services here. The nice thing about the paid services is they'll do it automatically. You don't have to worry about it. It gets backed up every night, and we actually get a log every day of the backups for our customers, and we look to make sure everybody backed up okay. So it's being monitored as well. Finally, the last tip, and this is really the biggest one for today, I suppose, is with everything we talked about today, think before you buy. If it's time for you to buy a new computer, or if it's time for you to buy a new server, you've got alternatives. You don't just have to buy a replacement for what you had. And in a lot of cases, you might save money. Maybe not. There's a lot of people who are not in a position to change because of the software, because of the workflow in your office, or whatever. But in a lot of cases, you can. So you want to think twice before you put in a new Windows PC or before you put in a new Windows server. Both of these lists, the list on the left is for a single user's device, and the list on the right is for a server. And they're ranked from the most expensive to the least expensive, with the most expensive being on the top of the list and the least expensive being at the bottom. And we're including both the actual cost of the device as well as the typical cost for ongoing maintenance and support. So Windows PC is by far the most expensive thing you can buy to do computing on. Now, that doesn't really help most of us. Most of us have to have a Windows PC to do our work. It's what we're most comfortable with. It's what our applications run on. It's the only thing our applications run on in some cases. So be it. If that's the way it is, that's the way it is. But at least think about it for your given use. What we're seeing, the reason that the iPad is so popular is not just because it's a nice device. It is a nice device. But for a lot of people who might otherwise have bought a home computer or a kid's computer or an extra computer, they're finding that for the things they want to do with it, the iPad will work just fine. And although you can actually buy a computer cheaper than an iPad, the iPad has very little in the way of maintenance costs. As long as you don't break the screen, and the screens are fragile, as long as you don't break the screen, there's very little that needs to be done with the iPad. On the flip side, it can't do a lot, so you kind of find the place in that list where your needs are. Same thing on the server side. Microsoft, as I said, has been largely discontinuing the small business servers. For a lot of small businesses, you may not need a server at all anymore. If you do need a server, you don't necessarily need a Windows server. You might be able to get away with a simple file server, a desktop as a service solution. You might be able to get away with just using something like Office 365 or a network attached storage device or something like that. Talk to us or talk to your IT consultant whenever those purchases come up, because it can save you thousands of dollars and really thousands of dollars a year in ongoing maintenance if you choose a less expensive option. So before you buy anything, know what's coming in the office of the future. And ultimately, the winner in this big battle is you. I mean, the nice thing about having these tech heavyweights, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon, fighting over your business, is they're all trying to find ways to lower prices. They're all trying to find ways to pack in more features, and that just benefits all of us as users. So if you've got any questions at this point, feel free to use the chat window. It's the little bubble icon at the top of your screen. I think it's at the top of your screen. It's at the top of mine. Feel free to use that and type in a question. That's the end of this part of the presentation. I did want to give you a little taste of what's coming in the even more distant future. Google Glass, I don't know if any of you have seen this. It's been out for a couple of years now. It's a way where you can literally have a screen in front of your eyeball all the time to see your incoming emails, to see your incoming text messages, to get a map of your surroundings, to look up information about what you're seeing, to take pictures of what you're seeing in front of you and record it or copy it to Facebook. What it can't do is not make you look dorky, but they're still working on that. The second version of Google Glass, just because I can't say that, Google Glass just came out recently. Google's also come out with self-driving cars. You may have heard about these. They're now legal in 3 states, California, Nevada, and Florida, not here in South Carolina as yet. But they're entirely autonomous vehicles that they can drive themselves with no person inside the car, based on computer technology, based on that little gizmo you see on the top, which is called LiDAR, that's learned to scan its surroundings and know what it's getting into. And this is one of the most interesting. Google just recently got a patent for a tattooed microphone. So if you know how hard it is to have a conversation with people in public sometimes when there's a lot of background noise, or you've your phone's in the car and you're away from it or whatever, Google's actually got a patent now for a tattooed microphone they can put on your neck that will transmit your voice to your phone nearby, so you can keep having a conversation with someone even when you don't have the phone up to your face, which is kind of freaky and weird to think about. But that's the even more distant future. We probably won't see that for another 5 to 10 years. So I appreciate you guys tuning in today. I don't have any questions in the chat box. If you do have any other questions, feel free to shoot me an email anytime at chip@ct-anderson.com. Hope this webinar has been useful for you, and we look forward to working with you in the future.